Welcome to Starcanum, where we are obsessed with Star Wars Unlimited. I'm Ryan, and I'm so glad you're here because I just played in a Planetary Qualifier and made top 16 again. And this time, I did it with Wedge, and I thought we could talk about the deck. And here it is, Wedge at Tarkin Town, which I'll tell you right now, probably a mistake. I don't think Tarkin Town was the right base here, but I liked green and red together, and our game plan was to just play small fighters and then put pilots on them, make them into serious threats, and kill our opponent quickly before they could do whatever they're trying to do. So that's not a super unusual aggressive strategy, but why Wedge for this PQ, right? What was I thinking? Well, now that Django has been banned, it's a lot easier to make something like this work, because with Django, they could just, exhaust your buffed up huge Falcon for very little investment on their part, while also adding to their board, and you would just fall behind in the tempo war. But now that that's not a problem, you actually have some really great lines here that can apply a lot of pressure very quickly, often faster than even Sabine can do on the ground. So just a quick refresher, if you haven't actually looked at Wedge in a while, his ability is that as an action, you can play a pilot from your hand using piloting, and it costs one less to do that. There are a bunch of one-cost pilots in here which become free to play with Wedge, and as we know, anytime that you can cheat in resources in this game, that can be a really big deal, right? The original Boba Fett could do that, the Hans can do that in a lot of cases. And anytime, Piet can do that now with capital ships. Anytime that you can reduce the cost of stuff or get stuff for free, you're in a pretty good spot. Okay, so with that in mind, our goal is to play a fighter on turn one and then use Wedge to play one of our pilots that will cost 0, right? So we've got A-Wings, the Resistance X-Wings, the Y-Wings, the other A-Wings, Black One, and Anakin's Interceptor. So tons of stuff that we can put down immediately. Then we exhaust Wedge, and then we get to add BB-8, Neon, R2-D2, or Biggs. Any one of those combinations can come out as early as turn 1. I also want to call out that we have some good insurance against another really popular deck right now, which is Quinlan Tarkin Town, right? So to survive their first turn, you often need something with 5 health, because they usually do a ping plus use their Tarkin Town, so they can kill things that have up to 4. Well, if we play one of our A-Wings or Black One or something like that with 3 health, and then we put BB-8 or Nien on it, we actually end up with a 5 health unit that they can't kill with that first turn ping in Tarkin Town, and that is huge. And if you've got Chewbacca in your hand and you have initiative going into the second turn, he is an incredible pilot to put down onto your turn 1 ship, because then you're immune to Power of the Dark Side and a whole bunch of other removal that other popular control decks are playing, like Kira or anything with blue in it. You kind of get to just ignore that for a couple of turns, which can also feel pretty good. So yeah, the goal is play a fighter, put a pilot on it, go to your next turn. Then you're looking to play either the Falcon or maybe Leia on the ground and attack with a buff on your piloted fighter. We've got blue leaders in here for a quick ambush if we want to keep the skies clear, or we can hold on to those for later, move them down to the ground, and hit something down there. One of my favorite turn 2 plays, though, after playing a turn 1 fighter with a pilot, you can spend 3 to play Red Leader, because it's going to cost 1 less thanks to that pilot. And then, if you've got another 1-cost pilot in your hand, you can use Wedge to put that one onto Red Leader and make an X-Wing token as well. So you can have a huge Space Force on the second turn of the game. Now, obviously, if you don't find your red leaders, Falcon is still a great drop there. Red 5 is a great drop there. You're just trying to establish yourself on the board whatever way you can with the cards that you've drawn. We also tend to empty our hand out usually by turn 2 or the start of turn 3, which is another advantage going into the Quinlan matchup, because now their force throws and their Ahsokas and pillages and all the stuff that they were hoping to do to strip our hand or punish us for holding cards None of that works, so feels great to just play a couple of small ships, load them up with pilots at a discount thanks to Wedge, and then pour on the damage. Now, in terms of like removal or interaction elements, we only have two pieces, but they both work pretty great. We've got Strike True, and I've had some huge Millennium Falcons that have been able to shoot stuff on the ground and kill it, including leaders. Like, I like to save Strike True if I'm up against, I don't know, Anakin Blue, right? Anakin Colossus. And if I can get a pilot or two on the Falcon, so I've got 7 or more power there, as soon as they deploy Anakin, I just snipe them from space, and they never see that coming. Our other secret spicy tech in here is Legal Authority. Again, because our ships with pilots tend to have pretty good power, and if it's something like Chewbacca, we're really only worried about, taking damage and him getting killed head on. So Legal Authority adds a buff to his toughness, which is already insane. And you get to swallow something up. Now, this worked great against like the Rey Data Vault deck for some reason, because it played a lot of, low-powered units that we would just swallow up, especially if they play like Clone Deserter. And then they use Rey's ability to put a counter on it, and then I Legal Authority. Now I get to claim the bounty, and they wasted their Rey action, and, I've got a really tanky unit up in space where they don't play as much stuff. So those moves all felt really good, and I was very happy to have the 3 Legal Authority and the 3 Strike True. I think that they were perfect for this deck. Now, we had a good game plan here, and we've got cards that synergize really well together. I mean, anytime I could put BB-8 down for free and then pay his little 2-cost kicker there to ready up Black 1 with a pilot on it and just hit for a ton of damage, that kind of stuff all feels great. But the deck did occasionally just like lose to itself by drawing the wrong mix of ships and pilots, because obviously ships by themselves don't quite do enough, and pilots without a ship, you don't really want to put them on the ground because they're not very strong there. So sometimes I would just draw a bad mix, and that did end up costing me a few games, but there were some other problems I ran into as well. One of the cards that absolutely kills this deck is Traitorous. After I've, built up a ship, maybe put some Legal Authorities on it, put a pilot in it, and it was just an A-wing to start, so Traitorous lets them take control of that, and now I'm behind several cards, and any new thing I play, they're just going to attack with the Traitorous ship itself, so I would never really get a chance to rebuild, and so that always felt bad. So I knew control was going to be like a problem, and so that's where the sideboard was really sculpted to try and help me out in my weakest matchups. We got 2 Confiscate over here. I mean, those are great for breaking out of Entrenched or the Traitorous, or knocking a Darksaber off of Sabine who's trying to race me. So that's just like a good catch-all for a lot of upgrades. Also had a Frisk in the sideboard for backup. I would take out one of the Luke Skywalkers to bring Frisk in if I felt that he would be useful, but he only works against cheaper upgrades, so he wasn't used all the time, but he was worth having, again, mostly against the blue decks that tried to entrench my giant space units, and then they would just not play anything in space and leave me stranded up there. Well, I could just play Frisk and break my way free, and that ended up being pretty crucial a couple of times. I got 1 copy of Air Superiority in here. That was really just in case I went up against Akira, because when she deploys, she'll have 4 health, and so long as I've got more ships than her, which I almost always do, this is a really cheap and easy way to just kill Kira outright before she can use like Overwhelming Barrage or, pick off any of my wounded stuff that's still up in space. Bright Hopes are here kind of for like a mirror, or I guess if I was going up against like a Luke Skywalker pilot deck or anything else that's trying to race me up in space. The Vader Swarm deck was one I was kind of scared of. I didn't end up seeing that at the PQ, but I thought having some Bright Hopes around might be useful. And along similar lines, I got 2 timely reinforcements here. Usually I want the game to be over by the time it's worth playing this, but against a true ramp deck that is getting out to big stuff faster, and they've got the extra resources, and they've been just kind of controlling or answering anything I've been able to play so far. This could quickly drop 3 or 4 or more X-Wing tokens out, which would give me somewhere to start putting pilots back out and kind of let me survive a little bit beyond what this deck normally is capable of. But the card I am most proud of having in the sideboard is Chaos of War, which deals damage to each player's base equal to the number of cards they have in their hand. And I knew that there were going to be some Data Vault decks out there that were just, drawing cards and holding huge grips of cards, and just, you play something and then they use Takedown, and you try to play something else and get a pilot on it, and then they fell the dragon, and they're just answering everything you do one for one while keeping a very full hand of cards. And I think a lot of other aggressive decks might use something like For a Cause to get those last couple of points of damage in after they think that they have stabilized. But I found that paying 5 for the Chaos of War when your opponent is holding 7, 8, 9 cards in hand, and there's nothing they can do about it. They just take a ton of damage, and I would, not take any because this was the only thing in my hand. So I won one game against a Raid Data Vault deck because exactly that. She had been playing a lot of removal earlier on and wiped out a bunch of my, mid-tier kind of fighters there. I'd gotten in for a good burst of early damage, had her at about 20, 25 damage, but she was holding like 10 cards in hand. So I was able to just be like, well, Chaos of War, you take 10 damage. And that was it. That was the game. So overall, it was a 6-round PQ for me. I went 3-3 with this deck, and like I said, Tarkentown might have been a mistake. I didn't get to use it very often, and there were a couple games where it did come down to just having a few more health on my base might have let me get one more attack in and steal a win. So I would look at maybe swapping that out. You could even go Thermal Oscillator and cut a handful of cards out of here and make this a lean, mean machine, or just go for like a 30 HP red base. So I'm going to keep tinkering with this one. I don't expect it to get a lot of help with the next set coming out, but there won't be any new pilots, and since that's Wedge's whole thing, we're kind of locked into this roster as it is. We'll probably get new ships, but I don't expect there to be like a ton of variation, right? There's only so many ways they can make a 2-cost fighter. They're all going to be like 2 or 3 power and 2 or 3 toughness and maybe have an ability or something like that. But ultimately, I think the numbers are kind of stuck where they are. So if any help is going to come, it might have to be through other events. I did look at putting like Trench Run in here or, some things like that. Even just Daring Raid to kind of get the last couple of points of damage. So probably my events and upgrades package will get tinkered with more than anything else. But if you've got ideas on how to improve or, try something else with this deck, I would love to hear it. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the cool decks and unlimited adventures that we have here on Starcanum. I'll see ya.